Hi everybody, my name is Kayla Rodriguez and I did chapter 11, pages 420 to 432. I will be talking about the importance of attachments and emotions within a child. So I decided to add voice to my presentation a few days after the due date. My personal life and my work life have been really crazy, clashing into each other, and I unfortunately just did not have time to add voice, although I really wanted to, which is why I'm doing it now. I learned such amazing things out of this section of the chapter. It just changes your entire perspective of how to help a child, and you learn such great things that are applicable to your future career as an educator. And I'm just so enthusiastic to learn all these new things that I've learned with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and begin talking about implications of attachments. Before I begin, I want to go ahead and inform you guys that infants' attachments are very important for later social life. However, if infants have not yet experienced a secure attachment, it can be rebuilt by educators and caregivers. Attachments are incredibly vital that they have to constantly be bolstered to prevent weakening. I will begin by providing advice and strategies for future educators and parents to preserve and continue to enhance secure attachments. And if I stutter a little bit, I ask that you excuse me. I get really nervous when recording, so I'm going to try my best for you guys. So I'm going to begin by talking about care for young children in a warm and sensitive manner. Family members such as parents and siblings are an infant's first attachments. However, children additionally form close bonds with teachers and employed caregivers. Children are drawn close to those who become familiar and provide responsive and sensitive care. From there, trust is built. The second one is very important for future educators to take into consideration, which is give children time to adjust to you. I learned this the hard way when I subbed for Irving ISD. It's difficult for young children to adjust to new people. Children from all ages. It just does not have to be just infants. It takes time, but that definition really depends on the relationship that the child has with their parents. Infants who have a secure attachment need several weeks to adjust to a new caregiver. They need time to adjust to their personality and their interaction methods. Because separation from parents can be difficult for infants, new caregivers need to offer lots and lots of comfort. This creates trust and comfort between the new caregiver and the child. However, children who have not yet experienced the feeling of warm and sensitive care may feel anxious and uneasy for weeks when meeting a new caregiver. These feelings of concern arise from an infant, as it is difficult for them to trust another adult. However, attachments like these can be rebuilt when caregivers provide affectionate care, meet their needs, and empathize with the child. Children without prior secure attachments gain immensely when caregivers act consistently, patiently, and lovingly, of course. Moreover, during this process, teachers may experience unusual and offensive behavior from children. However, this is because children initially protect themselves from new caregivers by being hostile. Despite this, though, teachers should continue to be considerate and reassure the child when actions tend to get out of control. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so the following will be suggestions and strategies for teachers and educators on how to appropriately and effectively provide warm and sensitive care for children and toddlers. So the first one would be meet infants' needs in a timely fashion. This is very important as it is a big part in forming secure attachments. Caregivers need time to reassure children with their needs, that their needs are important. For example, a mother is sweeping the house when her baby begins to cry. The mother puts the broom down and prepares a bottle for her baby. The second one is respond positively to newly developed ideas. It is very important for parents and caregivers to celebrate a child's milestones. The child feels appreciated, therefore will continue to advance in the new ideas. such as rolling over or touching their feet. A good example is a mother is feeding her baby. She realizes that her baby is saying, "Mom, mom, ma." The mother smiles and repeats to the baby, "Mama." The third one is be polite but matter of fact when referring to infants' bodies. As an employed giver, and of course as a parent, you want to make sure you are being considerate about your diction. You want to make sure you are sensitive when referring to anything relating to a child. The last thing you want is to make a child insecure and uncomfortable by saying, "Oh my God, you're a dirty baby." The example is a mother is changing her baby daughter when she notices that she has a diaper rash. She then tells her, "Uh-oh, someone has a boo-boo on her bottom. Let's put ointment." The fourth one is set limits and redirect unacceptable behavior in a firm but gentle way. I believe that this is very important for future educators. I'm sorry, ignore that. Let me go ahead and repeat the fourth one. The fourth one is set limits and redirect unacceptable behavior in a firm but gentle way. I believe that this is very important for future educators to know, as we tend to go with the opposite of this. I really love learning about this strategy because I believe that this is extremely effective. The textbook states that the role of a nurturer is to help a child self-control rather than being an authority figure that resides with punishment. Tell a child what they're able to do instead of telling them not to do. The example would be during recess, a teacher notices a couple of toddlers throwing sand outside the sandbox. The teacher approaches them and advises them, "Let's make sandcastles instead of throwing the sand." This will guide the child into instinctively doing the right thing in the future. The last one is structure group care so that infants can maintain stable relationships with caregivers. As an employed caregiver, you always want to make sure that you have a stable relationship with your group of kids. Attending an infant's needs is vital, yet can be difficult as infants depend solely on the caregivers for their needs. A small group of children per caregiver will give the caregiver the opportunity to attend each child effectively. The example would be as an infant-toddler program is divided by separate rooms with a small group of children per teacher to interact with. These were awesome ideas. I really liked this one right here. I think this one was my favorite. I always tend to, unfortunately, when I first started subbing, I was always telling children what not to do. I thought that was the effective method in implementing discipline. However, I was wrong, and now I will be changing my ways as an educator. Okay, so in this slide, we will continue to talk about suggestions and strategies for educators in keeping and enhancing secure attachments. So we're going to be talking about nurture bonds in children of all ages. Attachments are very important beyond infancy. Children continue to gain throughout their elementary, middle, and high school years by having high-quality relationships with their teachers. Elementary teachers have it easier in tying bonds with children, as elementary children tend to seek more guidance from teachers than adolescents from middle and high school. However, teachers can socialize with adolescents by providing guidance, advice, and concern. They also give them opportunities to join clubs, sports, and school projects. The second one would be model affectionate caregiving for family members. Parents who have had insecure attachments and relationships in their childhood may experience lack of confidence and displeasure in their parenting journey, which is actually really, really sad. Educators can help parents experiencing this by showing them this could be in person or through video, how their infants reacts when being exposed to sensitive and loving care, such as peekaboo. Educators can also show parents how to hold a baby, feed them, and understand their baby's signals. All right, for slide 5, for the next slide, I would be giving you guys suggestions and encouragements for parents from educators. These are all super awesome suggestions. So for this one right here, Encourage parents to watch and appreciate children's interests and preferences. So, to further explain this, babies learn by performing simple activities such as sucking their finger and touching their toes. As parents, it is important to appreciate these acts and embrace their significance. Infants are sure to realize this and will be inclined to extend it. Examples would be, "Wow, Amy, do you see your toes? Look how small they are." Okay, this next one, this one right here, is very important. Professionals share ideas about infants' motives, feelings, and understanding with parents. When parents reflect, attachments become more secured. What this means is that parents and caregivers don't always understand why babies do the things that they do. Take, for example, a 16-month-old baby. Her name is Amy. Amy loves to put things in her mouth, put everything in her mouth. Her parents don't come to understand why. They become confused as she will start crying when she eats something she doesn't like or something that could harm her. However, she will continue to do it. A professional might say that Amy loves exploring her environment. This will give parents insight of her personality and will look at it in positive light rather than negative. I thought this was actually like super cool to learn. Parents tend to be so concerned with their babies and their actions that they start thinking, relying more on the negative rather than the positive. And I feel like just knowing about this will give parents a little bit of more of their baby's understandings and stuff like that. So yeah, it will draw them closer together. So yeah, this one was super awesome to learn about. This one right here. Educators advise parents about the special needs of children with disabilities by helping them recognize their child's way of expressing their behavior. So regarding children with special needs, parents may experience feeling overwhelmed as they struggle to understand their child's distinctive perspective, which is why this is very, very important to know. An example is an educator asking parents if their blind baby enjoys exploring their face with his or her hands. So this one right here would be regarding to this. Many children have had parents who are have parents who are divorced or missing one parent from their lives due to hospitalization, being deployed, or being deceased. Children with divorced parents want to keep contact with both, which is why educators can send class newsletters to both homes of a child with divorced parents. Counselors can talk to parents about how children from all different ages handle rotations between households. Furthermore, if a parent is absent from a child's life for the given reasons before, a counselor can provide reassurance and watch out for signs of traumatic reaction. Okay, so for the following will be suggestions for families experiencing personal struggles and insecure attachments. We're going to be looking at this bubble right here, which says children may find it traumatic being placed in a new home by CPS. Professionals can prepare and coach new parent figures to recognize and meet children's individual needs whilst promoting expectation, consequences, and love. As said before, it can be traumatic when children are removed from families by social services. This happens and results of neglect and maltreatment from the parents to the child. Professionals find it necessary to intervene during the adjustment of the child to his or her new caregivers. Most important thing a professional can do regarding the situation is to help new parents understand and meet their children's individual needs. By doing this, a secure attachment can be rebuilt between the new caregiver and the child. The teacher's job, though, is to offer a range of services to these families. For example, would be advising a foster family that the new child likes to pull her hair to help her cope with stressful situations. We're going to be looking at this bubble right here, which says children who have had few affectionate relationships develop poor social skills, may be difficult to like, These children may appear self-centered and careless. To help teachers and classmates can model appropriate reactions. As an educator and parent, modeling appropriate behavior with the child reciprocating the same behavior in mind is vital. Regarding a child who appears to be troubled, this is the equivalent of guiding a child and forming strong bonds by exhibiting affectionate and sensitive care. Moreover, your goal should be to encourage sympathy within a child. We're going to be looking at this bubble right here, which says, children who have not yet formed secure attachments to parents may benefit from warm and consistent routines. Without mutually loving relationships, children need social interaction. Children may feel very anxious and insecure, therefore will need attention constantly. Teachers need to constantly reassure children without fostering dependence. Okay, so as an educator, you want to be especially sensitive to children that express insecure or problematic attachments. Reassuring the child frequently builds trust and therefore enhances the bond between you and the child. To ease tension and anxiety in a child, what I have learned is to interact with the child while doing something that is considered soothing and calm, such as, building blocks. We're going to be looking at this bubble right here, which says, when parents are emotionally stressed and depressed, they may become unresponsive to their infant. Infants then become chronically sad. Parents tend to seek professional intervention to resolve their emotional needs before they can try a new parenting style. So as an educator, you want to address the needs of families that struggle with meeting emotional needs to professionals. When this is done, a plan can be created to find a soothing and effective intervention that can help the family. Okay, so last bubble right here, which says, some attachment problems are so disruptive that families require intensive services from a counselor, psychologist, or a social worker. So you as a teacher need to seek guidance when attachment problems seem serious. Your job will always be to keep your students safe beyond all things. An example would be a child never seeks help from a family caregiver or shows fear of a family member. So those are very serious, and like I said before, our job as educators is to keep our children safe beyond anything. All right, to summarize, sensitive and consistent care of individual children is essential for positive relationships between them and the teacher, which is AKA you. So what we learned based on attachments, a child's first attachment occurs between themselves and their caregiver. As caregivers, responsive and sensitive behavior is vital and prominent to a caregiver's responsive and sensitive behavior is vital to prominent to create a secure attachment. Some secure attachments in early years of life promote future positive interaction and social skills. We are now going to hop into the topic of emotions. During this topic, I will talk about the developmental changes in children, as well as the response and reflection to certain emotions. And lastly, I will talk about factors that contribute to eliciting different emotions within a child. So very quick, emotions are the feelings, both physiological and psychological, that people have in response to events that are personally relevant to their needs and goals. Okay, so this table was provided to us by the textbook. It shows us how we can identify different emotions and what implications those emotions have. It also gives us educators strategies and suggestions on how we can manage negative emotions, such as if you see one of your students expressing anger, you can help them express anger appropriately and redirect their energy towards reasonable solutions. Or if you see one of your students expressing fear, you can help them seek reassurance, and you can help them articulate their fears and offer reassurance, like I said before. This helps children emotionally regulate, which brings us to this. Okay, so Emotional regulation is the ability to moderate affective states such that feelings are experienced authentically and expressed according to both personal needs and social conventions. Emotional regulation is actually part of self-regulation. It helps the child have the ability to control his or her behavior. With this said, when children make healthy strides in their emotional behavior, they instinctively manage their reaction rather than let it spin out of control. So a good example would be a children is using words instead of fists when they're angry. So this is really, really good for children. Another important part about emotional regulation is learning to cope with daily stressors. Children experience daily stressors. Some examples include unrealistic demands from parents, low test scores, bullies, and so on. However, having a secure attachment with parents helps lower stress levels in children. And lastly, emotional regulation is a vital part of a child's well-being. Okay, so the way children express, understand, and cope with emotions tend to change over time as they expand their experience of the world around them. Emotional development is characterized by the following points. Infants begin life with a few basic emotions and gradually add to it. So contentment, interest, and the distress are the emotions that are felt in the first 6 months of life. So babies may crack a small smile when feeling happy with familiar faces. Babies may become engaged in discovering new things such as their body, mouthing fingers and toes, and listening to sounds that are soothing such as music. As they mature, infants add more emotions such as distress about something casual can quickly turn into anger. So for example, mommy doesn't let the baby play with a remote controller. They're gonna get really, really angry. My 8-month-old niece does that a lot. So that was the perfect example to use. As anxiety kicks in, infants tend to feel fear during their second half of their first year. An example would be fireworks or objects moving in unexpected ways. The second one would be infants respond to other people's emotions. So babies are able to detect other emotions. This ability is called emotional contagion, which is basically sharing another's feelings or distress. So I'm more than sure you guys can relate to this. Yawning after seeing someone else yawn. When you see someone yawning, you immediately yawn as well. This happens with babies. So when a baby sees another baby cry, the baby will start crying. So babies within the first months of life react to the emotional expressions of their caregivers in meaningful ways. Babies respond positively to caregiver smiles and sensitive care. If a caregiver does not express emotions, such as not smiling during playtime, babies respond by crying or looking away. So I felt like this one goes hand in hand with this point right here. So the third point is children learn to guide their actions on the basis of other people's facial expressions, mannerism, and tone of voice. Okay, so towards the end of their first year, children start taking into consideration their caregiver's emotions and body language in situations where they don't know how to react. This is because children express something called social referencing early in their second year. What typically children look for is their parents' body language, tone, and facial expression. So for example, a 17-month-old boy looks at mommy's face when a new friend enters the door. The little boy takes into consideration his mother's expression when responding to the new friend. Okay, so the last point is children expand their repertoire of basic emotions to include self-conscious emotions. Okay, so feelings such as anger and fear in infancy are later supplemented with self-conscious emotions in early childhood. These self-conscious emotions reflect awareness of social standards. They include guilt, embarrassment, and pride. The example would be a 6-year-old Edgar would throw his toys everywhere when younger and storm to his room. Now he still throws a few toys, but quickly feels embarrassed and puts them in his toy box instead. All right, moving on. Okay, so on this slide, I will be talking about how children reflect on emotions, which is how they connect their emotions to others, and how emotion regulation tends to evolve as time passes. And I'll also be talking about how children regulate their emotions, which is how children learn to cope with stressful situations. So we're gonna be talking first about reflecting. So children as early as age 2 or 3 begin talking about emotions that they and others experience. They also realize that emotions and desires go hand in hand. So, for example, Emily was mad that she did not get a turn on the swing. She loves the swings. By middle school, children realize that expressions do not always represent one's feelings. Middle schoolers tend to connect words for emotions such as happy, angry, and sad with certain facial expressions and analyze under what situations these emotions were elicited. So the example that I have is Tommy got mad and frowned when I took his pencil. The emotion word would be mad, the facial expression would be frowned, and the situation was that I took his pencil. So another example would be Miss Stephanie was sad that she lost her puppy but acted quite cheery in school. This goes with this point right here. I'm sorry, I went to another point before explaining this one. So that our expressions do not always represent one's feelings, and middle schoolers begin to realize that. So the last point would be middle schoolers also realize that they may feel ambivalent feelings. So it's normal for middle schoolers to start feeling mixed feelings about certain situations. The example that I have is you want to go see the new Star Wars movie because you love Star Wars, but hate remakes. So yeah, ambivalent feelings right there. We're going to go ahead and hop into regulating. I'm sorry, this video is like super long, but it's so much information, and I promise that this is all really, really helpful. So children over time learn different strategies and how to cope with stressful situations. So newborns depend solely on caregivers for help when they are hungry or hurt. As caregivers attend the infant starts learning to distress. So infants realize that distress can be relieved under certain circumstances. So infants may also soothe themselves, for example, sucking their thumb. Another good one is crawling away if they feel scared of something. Parent guidance continues to aid children in learning strategies to cope with stress. So when something happens, parents may reappraise the problem, perhaps explain it on why it happened, and give advice on how to view it or help it. By elementary school, children have typically learned to talk about their emotions and be considerate of others and remain calm when angry. So for example, say that your child scraped his knee, you would ask the child if you would want him to kiss his boo-boo. So just continue, you're just showing him how to cope with stress. So when adolescents find themselves in stressful situations, they ask adults or peers for help. Try to be patient or change the way they think about a certain situation. So adolescents tend to substitute one activity for another and focus on the positive things of challenging situations. We're almost there, you guys. Okay. So this slide is very important, as I will be talking about how children respond to stress and the process of how emotions are elicited by the brain function. So children who have been raised by nurturing caregivers handle stress very well and tend to adjust with ease. Unfortunately, those who have insecure attachments and no coaching and coping skills find it very hard to deal with stress. So emotions are processed by a collection of interacting parts. Hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical glands is a system of registering stress and mobilizing the body when for protective action. So when a child encounters an environmental threat, the hypothalamus, which is an almond-sized structure in the brain that is involved with the basic physiological processes, including eating, sleeping, and maintaining temperature, and back to this, is put on alert and stimulates the pituitary, which is a pea-sized gland that sends instructions to other glands to produce hormones. Um, Once alerted, the pituitary releases a substance that triggers the adrenocortical glands. So the adrenocortical glands are just like small organs near each kidney. This produces cortisol. So this helps the child react quickly to danger. The activation of the HPA, which is a hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical glands, axis, is the life-sustaining purpose of escaping danger. However, when overloaded, it can hinder health. It can cause chronic stress and elevated blood pressure. People who are exposed to toxic stress are always alerted. They're actually unable to generally relax because they always think that there's something wrong. So children who face toxic stress have trouble remembering things and concentrating. They tend to rely on impulsive behavior and eventually result to substance abuse when they're older. So children retain the ability to adapt to new coping skills. Intervention that emphasizes sensitive care with children of all ages can produce improvement in their coping skills. So here are some tips on how to help children and adolescents cope with toxic stress. You can keep them relaxed, watch their body language and facial expressions, establish pleasant routines, and lastly, coach adolescents to express their emotions in controlled ways. Alrighty. Okay, so this slide is a bit loaded with information about different topics, including empathy, pressures on children, and the expansion of coping skills. So we're going to go ahead and jump into empathy. So empathy is the ability to recognize and share the feelings of another person. This is very important to get along in society. So empathy develops gradually. In infancy, empathy is expressed by crying reflexively, hearing others in distress in the first 6 months. So at 6 months, they use gestures towards someone in distress. At 8 to 12 months, infants seem to be uncomfortable when another child is hurt. So 2-year-old toddlers may express empathy through actions such as hugging and patting someone who is in distress. 3-year-old toddlers are able to express empathy by reassuring words and facial expressions. This development of empathy depends on sensitive parenting. Parents who guide their child in being empathetic encourage them to help others in need. So when a parent attends their infant's needs with sympathetic gestures, the child will then reciprocate. Children who lack socialization at home leaves them unable to focus on others' needs. So when this happens, children are spending too much time feeling very insecure about themselves that they're unable to unfortunately help others. Children, however, gain access to socialization skills from teachers, foster parents, and counselors. So children can help by encouraging self-centered students consider the feelings of a distressed student. So that's how we as educators can help. So the upper elementary and secondary years unleash new pressures for students. In late childhood and early adolescence, pressures such as fitting in and ideal body types begin to surface. So during this stage, I totally got blinded. I'm sorry. So in late childhood and early adolescence, pressures such as fitting in and ideal body types begin to surface. Some of these pressures are found at home. They may find themselves arguing with parents, and some of these issues are found in the community that include violence and prejudice. So coping skills expand during childhood and into adolescence. So during early and middle childhood, children continue to add coping skills. So during this stage, children continue to rely on parents and trustworthy adults. They also distract themselves by activities. Along with this, children plan how to avoid a particular problem in the future and observe how peers solve similar issues. Um, some students may simply directly talk to a trusted person about their issues, hoping it would just go away, and sometimes they don't. However, sometimes they do. With this said, you have to keep in mind that not all coping skills are adaptive. Students may feel guilt and regret, feeling sorry for themselves. They will begin to even blame others and start socially to withdraw. They then try altering their depression moods with drugs and alcohol. Okay, so on this last section, I will talk about the bioecology of emotions. Throughout this part of chapter 11, we've learned how experiences with family and at school strongly influence a child's emotional behavior and well being. Other factors that are equally as strong in influencing a child's emotional well-being includes the child's personal characteristics and experiences outside the family, such as gender, culture, and socioeconomic status. So we're going to begin by talking about gender. So the biology part and how it influences emotion through gender is pretty easy to understand. I have made a T-chart right here for you guys demonstrating the differences. So before I begin, I want to inform you guys that during infancy, emotion based on gender is not really as distinct. These changes usually emerge after the age of 2. So girls show more positive outcomes, however, they show more guilt and sadness from elementary and forward, while boys show more anger at the beginning of early childhood. Instead of distracting themselves from problems, girls become too involved in it. While boys, when vulnerable, they tend to act self-confident. Rising hormone levels during puberty elicit moodiness and depression in girls, while in boys, rising hormone levels during puberty elicit rebelliousness and aggressiveness. Emotional responding contributes to emotion based on gender. So parents talk about fear and sadness with girls. On the other hand, parents talk about anger with boys. The last one would be adolescent girls tend to respond to concern with sympathy, and adolescent boys tend to respond to concern with disregard and ridicule. So this happens a lot during middle school and high school. Moving on to culture. I just don't want to make this video way too long because I'm already hitting almost the 40-minute mark. Moving on to culture. The language children speak represent different aspects of emotion that are important in their culture. So in the English language, emotion words are used to emphasize internal emotions such as happy, sad, and angry. In other cultures, they use body sensations for emotion, such as headache, fast heartbeat. So we're going to be talking about 2 different types of cultures, so individualistic and collectivistic. So very quick, individualistic culture, independence is valued. They don't really let outside factors influence them, which is why it is encouraged to express all emotions. They tend to communicate directly. So they encourage children to express all emotions, like I said before, happiness, frustrations, everything. Because like I said, they do value independence. Collectivistic is totally, I don't want to say totally different, but it's different. In the collectivistic culture, interdependence is valued. So people see themselves connected to others. They tend to emphasize relationships with others. People in this culture like maintaining social harmony, get along with others, and they tend to communicate indirectly to avoid conflict. So they disapprove of all negative emotion that is associated with self-absorption. They also believe that it disrupts a group's harmony. However, families in every single culture have their unique ways in how they socialize children's emotional expression. We will now talk about socioeconomic status of how socioeconomic status affects emotions. So for low-income families, unfortunately, children are high risk for emotional and behavioral problems. They are more exposed to anxiety, depression, and behavioral problems. Children experiencing hardships have more reason to feel sad, fearful, and angry as they witness firsthand the distress and struggles of their parents. So, for example, children would witness parents struggle to make ends meet. They also encounter violence and drug addictions within their community. However, early intervention is proven to help children's emotional development. So it's really, really good to just have those interventions in hand. However, not all children are emotionally hindered. Many get loving care from immediate family members, and they also acquire good coping skills. Um, so, for middle income and high income families, they are not immune to stress. We all tend to believe that if you come from a family who is economically stable, you tend to have a really easy life. However, it's not really like that. And I learned this through the textbook. So middle and income and so when you come from a family that is middle and high income, there the parents tend to put their aspirations and unrealistic expectations on children. They want their children to be as successful as them, and so they tend to just give those ideas early in life. Although children, they're barely starting, and it's hard for them to process everything that their parents are trying to explain and make them do, which causes them to be really stressed out. So children in these families constantly worry about their parents' expectations. As I said before, it just really causes them to be stressed out, and they just want to impress their parents and not disappoint their parents, and they always have that in mind. I don't want to disappoint my dad because I'm getting a bad grade and stuff like that. So both of these socioeconomic statuses face could face emotional behavioral problems. However, they don't necessarily have to be that way. And that's all of that. Thank you for watching my 40 minutes of this video. I really enjoyed doing this project. I know that it was a lot of information, but it's super great information to learn and just ingrain in our brains, so that whenever we become educators, we can apply this in our classroom. And so yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this, and excuse my stuttering. I just get really nervous, and I'm promise I'm working on it. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.